In the forests of Scotland, a couple is camping, enjoying the quiet and beauty of nature. The girl gives her boyfriend a silver dagger as a gift. It seems unusual, but she tells him it might be useful. At dawn, their peace is broken. They hear the sound of the tent being unzipped. Before they can react, a monstrous hand grabs the girl and shakes her violently. The creature starts devouring her. The boyfriend tries to reach for the silver dagger, but he is attacked and quickly overpowered. 2 hours earlier, in the foggy woods of North Wales, a man is running through the forest, trying to escape a group of British soldiers. He manages to knock some of them out but is eventually caught. This turns out to be a training exercise. The man, a soldier named Cooper, has performed well in the test, but his captain gives him a disturbing order: kill the squad's dog. Cooper is horrified and refuses. But the captain shows no emotion and shoots the dog himself. This enrages Cooper and he attacks the captain, but is quickly overpowered and thrown to the ground. The captain then declares him unfit and orders him to be replaced. 4 weeks later, in the Scottish Highlands, a British Army squad arrives in the forest by helicopter. Their mission is a simulated exercise to practice invading enemy lines. Among the squad is Cooper, now part of a new team. After hours of walking along a river, the soldiers take a break. Cooper tells his team about a violent attack that happened nearby weeks ago. A couple camping in the area was attacked, and their bodies were never found. Their belongings were left torn apart and covered in blood. He mentions that strange incidents like this are common in the area. Despite the story, the training mission continues. The squad pushes deeper into the forest until nightfall. They set up camp and light a fire. As they rest, the sergeant tells stories about his past missions. Suddenly, a mangled cow's carcass falls onto the campfire, scattering blood and guts everywhere. The soldiers panic and start shooting at the remains before realizing the animal is already dead. The sergeant calms them down and examines the cow. Its wounds look like they were caused by large teeth. Despite the disturbing find, the sergeant decides not to call for help. He orders the team to take turns keeping watch for the rest of the night. The next morning, the squad follows the blood trail left by the cow. Along the way they find more pieces of the carcass, confirming something big and dangerous is in the area. Shortly after, the team spots a flare in the sky. It's a signal from one of their reconnaissance members. When they reach his location, they're met with a gruesome scene. Human remains and intestines are scattered everywhere. The weapons and ammunition, however, are untouched. As they try to make sense of the carnage, Captain Ryan suddenly appears, stumbling out from behind some crates. He's in bad shape, with deep claw marks across his chest. Despite his animosity towards Ryan, Cooper moves quickly to help him. Bruce attempts to radio for immediate air support, but the signal isn't getting through. To make matters worse, Captain Ryan's radio is completely destroyed. He reveals that his Special Forces squad was on a secret mission to eliminate a monster. Using night vision binoculars, they had been tracking the creature, but they were ambushed. Ryan barely escaped as the rest of his team was slaughtered. With nightfall approaching, the sergeant decides to end the training simulation. The mission has now turned into a fight for survival. The soldiers remove the yellow training tips from their weapons and load live ammunition. Ryan warns them that guns won't be enough to stop the creatures. He advises them to run while they still can, before the monsters tear them apart. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoes through the forest. The sergeant orders the team to form lines of 3 and fall back. Half the group will cover the rear while the rest follow him toward an open field. As the group retreats, Bruce lags behind to guard their rear. The chilling sound of howls pierces the air, and he spots movement in the trees. Bruce raises his weapon to fire, but the gun jams. Panic sets in as he tries to fix it, but the creature is closing in fast. Desperate, Bruce starts running through the dense forest. In his blind sprint he's impaled by a sharp tree branch, killing him instantly. Meanwhile, Sergeant Harry ventures into the area alone, fully aware that he's being watched. He discovers Bruce's bloodied body impaled on the tree but barely has time to react. The werewolf yanks Bruce's remains free and disappears into the shadows. Seconds later, the creature lunges at Harry. He fires his weapon, managing to hit it several times, but a second werewolf attacks from behind. It strikes with brutal force, tearing open Harry's abdomen and spilling his intestines. At that moment, Cooper arrives on the scene. Without hesitation, he opens fire on the werewolves, managing to land several shots. The sergeant screams in agony from his wound as Cooper does his best to stop the heavy bleeding. The team then retreats into the forest, while firing at the beasts to keep them at bay. In the distance, they spot headlights on a nearby road. A vehicle approaches, offering a potential escape. One of the soldiers jumps into the road to flag it down. The group hurriedly climbs into the car, driven by a woman named Megan. She tries to start the vehicle, but the wheels seem jammed. As the werewolves close in, they surround the car and begin clawing at it. One creature pierces the roof and forces its grotesque arm inside, trying to grab the soldiers. But our heroes fight back, stabbing at the arm until the creature retreats. Finally, Megan gets the car moving, and they manage to leave the werewolves behind, for now. Megan explains there's only one farm nearby, owned by her friends, where they might find safety and treat the sergeant's wounds. Under a thick fog they arrive at the farmhouse, but no one answers the door. Cooper and another soldier cautiously enter to investigate but find no one except the family dog, Sam. With no sign of the residents, the group enters and begins organizing. Cooper takes charge since the sergeant is gravely injured and in excruciating pain. Megan informs them there's no phone in the house, and the nearest town is 4 hours away. Cooper thus decides they should use the car to get help, but when he and a soldier named Spoon go to retrieve it, they find the vehicle completely destroyed. It turns out the werewolves are everywhere, lurking in the shadows. Meanwhile, Cooper orders Spoon to stay calm and not shoot unless signaled. The two then retreat to the house, but a stray shot ignites leaking fuel, causing a fiery explosion. The werewolves close in, pushing at the doors and sticking their claws through the gaps. Cooper struggles to close the door but finally secures it. Inside, chaos continues. The sergeant, delirious from pain, has his bandages pulled at by the dog. But Cooper arrives just in time and calms the tense atmosphere, demonstrating strong leadership. He then orders a comrade named Terry to boil water and others to fortify the house by boarding up windows and blocking doors with furniture. Despite their efforts, the werewolves remain outside, prowling the perimeter and darting between the trees. The soldiers fire bursts of gunfire into the dark, but the creatures persist. The group then scavenges for any weapons they can find, from medieval swords to an electric kitchen saw. At this point, the sergeant is crying with pain, so he orders Cooper to knock him out. The latter is hesitant at first, but he eventually obliges. As the tension mounts, Megan reveals she's been studying these creatures for years. She confirms that they're werewolves, which hunt under the full moon. Following this revelation, Cooper interrogates Captain Ryan, demanding to know why his unit was in the area. Ryan refuses to answer and his behavior becomes increasingly suspicious. To make matters even more shocking, his earlier injuries seem oddly healed. When Cooper tries to inspect his wounds, Ryan pulls a gun. But before he can cause any damage, Megan knocks him out with a frying pan. The group then eventually find about his wounds and theorize that something's clearly wrong with him. At this moment, the power in the house cuts out as it turns out the werewolves have destroyed the generator. Cooper then orders everyone to stay on guard, assigning Megan to watch Ryan, who remains a potential threat. Meanwhile, Spoon notices the back door handle moving and quickly locks it. The werewolves intensify their assault, pounding on the doors and breaking through the windows. The soldiers fire in all directions, using every bit of firepower they have. Spoon struggles to reload his weapon and resorts to holding the door with all his strength as the creatures force their way in. During the chaos, Cooper grabs a pot of boiling water from the stove and hurls it at the face of an attacking werewolf, buying a brief moment of reprieve. Spoon follows up with powerful swings from a frying pan, landing solid hits. Another soldier named Joe fires his shotgun repeatedly, but the werewolf eventually snatches the weapon away. Thinking quickly, Joe throws a grenade through the window, forcing the creature to retreat. Meanwhile, Spoon takes a punch to the face from another werewolf and narrowly avoids being crushed by a falling gas cylinder. Joe, now pulled through a window by the monstrous creatures, screams for Cooper to help. Our hero then wields a sword to slice off the beast's hand, forcing it to release Joe. The werewolves, however, are relentless, clawing at every door and window. One finally breaks through an upstairs window and enters the sergeant's room. Cooper rushes to warn him but is grabbed by another creature. Shouting for Harry to wake up, Cooper uses a flare to momentarily stun the beast and escapes its grip. The sergeant awakens just in time, and together, they shoot the werewolf, sending it tumbling out the window. The brief victory is cut short when Terry mocks the werewolves, only to be violently yanked through a window and carried off by the pack. Megan watches in horror as the creatures feast on him. The group then scrambles to reinforce the barricades, knowing they have 6 long hours until sunrise. With ammunition running low, the situation grows more desperate. Soon after, Megan spots a car in the barn and suggests hot wiring it as their escape. Joe volunteers for the mission, but they need a distraction. This is when Spoon lights a flare and shouts from the forest's edge to lure the werewolves away, allowing Joe to make a run for the barn. Spoon climbs back into the house using a rope, but the werewolves pull it, trying to follow. Thankfully, he cuts the rope with a knife while Megan blinds the creatures with camera flashes, forcing them to retreat. On the other hand, Joe manages to start the car but witnesses a horrifying scene, a werewolf devouring Terry alive. The beast rips Terry's head off and hurls it onto the windshield. This sends Joe into a state of panic, but he somehow fights the creature trying to enter the car and manages to ram it backward through the barn doors. However, he soon discovers the monster has climbed into the backseat. Joe fights valiantly but is ultimately overpowered and killed in a brutal manner. When the others find the vehicle, they see the werewolf feasting on Joe's remains. Megan fires her pistol to drive it away, giving them enough time to close the barn door. With hope dwindling and their chances of survival decreasing by the minute, Cooper confronts Captain Ryan, demanding answers. Ryan then coldly reveals that Harry's unit was bait, deliberately sent to die as part of a larger operation. This enrages the group and they punch Ryan, but then they notice his eyes glowing yellow and his claws and fangs emerging. It finally dawns on them that Ryan is transforming. At that moment, a massive werewolf bursts into the room. The team fights back with everything they have. Megan blinds it with the camera, Harry strikes it with a flaming piece of wood and Cooper drives the sword into its back. Spoon then unleashes a hail of bullets, forcing the creature to flee. As they regroup, the soldiers piece together a grim truth. The family who lived in the house were werewolves, and this is their lair. Megan theorizes that the werewolves behave like a pack, seeking shelter, food and warmth. She suggests a bold plan: lure the creatures into the barn and blow it up using a gas cylinder. The team gives the idea the green light and starts their preparations. They arrange the vehicle as a bomb, filling its fuel tank and loading the cylinder inside. Harry, realizing he's been infected and will soon turn, volunteers to stay behind and cover their escape. With everything in place, Cooper drives the vehicle into the barn and leaps out before impact. Harry then lights the gasoline trail with a Molotov cocktail, triggering a massive explosion that destroys the barn and seemingly the werewolves inside. But the nightmare isn't over. Megan reveals she's also part of the lycanthrope family. She had hoped to escape her cursed life but now succumbs to her instincts, turning against the soldiers. A terrified Spoon shoots her in the head, but the distraction allows another werewolf to attack. Spoon locks himself in the kitchen, weaponless, and prepares for a final stand. He fights ferociously, stabbing the beast with a kitchen knife and hurling plates and bottles. But despite his bravery, he is overwhelmed and killed. On the other hand, Cooper and Harry retreat upstairs, pursued by more werewolves. They lock themselves in a bathroom, where Harry improvises a flamethrower using aerosol and a heater. Cooper manages to stab one beast in the head with a nail, while Harry fends off others with flames. As their situation worsens, they find a hidden trapdoor leading to the basement. Harry hands Cooper a camera containing proof of the werewolves and urges him to survive to tell their story. Accepting his fate, Harry stays behind and sets the gas stove to explode, sacrificing himself to destroy the remaining pack. In the aftermath of this incident, Cooper and the dog Sam escape through the trapdoor. However, Captain Ryan, now fully transformed, launches an attack. A brutal fight then ensues, but Cooper finds a silver dagger among the victim's belongings. He drives it into Ryan's chest, killing him as dawn breaks. Exhausted but alive, Cooper and Sam emerge as the sole survivors. Cooper later tells the world about the horrors they endured, summing it up in a single haunting sentence: "Werewolves ate my platoon."